what would you call a draft tail? What is it most like? The tail's a little wonky because it's almost like a tiger's tail or something. The tail goes down, it's got a little poof on the end. I'm hoping that just the fact that you're going to post this on the internet, we can get a lot of chat going and a lot of other people's opinions on what does a draft tail most resemble. That it very well could be. We're losing a lot of engineers just because they're retiring, right? That workforce is retiring. Our senior operators are retiring, and there's a significant push to backfill or build intelligence around AI. There's a lot of discussion of AI and the impacts to the way the workforce operates today. I think that it's going to be a challenge, and 2030 may be a short runway to be ready to achieve that because so many manufacturers are not really ready for AI. But I think that is, potentially an outcome there by 2030, that we would see that many manufacturing jobs unfilled. I think it's an interesting topic of discussion. At one period of time, engineering was a very promising, profitable career path, and there was a change where engineering got reduced, and so the number of jobs became fewer, and academia started directing students to business as a career path. And so there was a void there, but with that void, I don't necessarily know that it is corrected efficiently. So we know that there's a hole. If you look at the lifeline of an employee, whether that's an operator, a maintenance person, a plant engineer, you've got the guy that started 20 years ago before there was this reduction. He's had to fight all the fires as the years go by. He is that single source of knowledge. There was a hole where there were not a lot of engineers. Now we're starting to build engineers, but they're coming in and they're only at a point of just a few years of experience. And so there's that large gap there. So as the 20-year-old veterans start to retire out, there's going to be a significant gap. I see it more and more every day because of the people that are the subject matter experts that have all of this tribal knowledge are beginning to age out. They're retiring, health reasons and whatnot. They're leaving that workforce. And as they leave that workforce, they're taking that tremendous amount of experience and knowledge with them, which is really leaving a deficit to the manufacturer. If we look at even technology, the way that the workforce thinks and does, when I started, everybody had a calculator and a piece of paper, and that's the way the business was done. As it's evolved, it's gone into spreadsheets and things like that. Today's workforce is more technology forward. They're more used to seeing infographics. They're more data driven. And in many cases, the industry has not kind of kept up with what the modern technology is. If you think back 5 years ago, what you could do with your cell phone versus what you can do today. I think today's workforce, for them to feel comfortable, they want that type of connection and that type of data to what they're doing. And again, there is a gap there between the workforce, Industry 4.0, and kind of trying to meet that. There's definitely a hole there as well. I will say, when I started, the internet was not a thing. There were bulletin boards, and I don't know that at that time there was anybody kind of in that field that was thinking of this interconnected web that we know of today. I would say it was probably mid-90s. I actually was part of a project to help an ISP develop an internet service. Learned a lot about that as I got into manufacturing. Manufacturing was still very much serial-based communications, really not the network that we think of today. That really didn't come along till later. And really, if you look at it, the internet connectivity down on the plant floor is not as prevalent as probably a lot of people think. Many times the equipment that we're dealing with is 20 years old. It was designed and built before the internet, or just at the very inklings of the internet even being a thing. And so there's still not a lot of, quote unquote, internet at the plant floor level. When you listen to old people like myself and they refer to the good old days, everybody always says it was a much simpler time. If you think from a technology standpoint, for me to learn a new piece of technology meant that I had to go to the library, I had to go to a bookstore and buy a book, and then I had to sit down and read the book to understand it, to get it to the point that you're ready to really put your hands on it. It'd be months. Today, technology, you get an email, you look at it, there's a link, you go to YouTube video, there's somebody who's talking about it, they walk you through, they're showing you examples in real time, and within a matter of an hour or so, in many cases, you at least have the core understanding of the technology and how to implement it. So I am 100% for AI, whether it's in school or in the workplace. My concerns around really governance, right? So it's privacy. So if I'm a company, I don't want to be sharing my company secrets or my intellectual property. So there needs to be some governance around that. I've thought about, as we grow technology, everybody stands on the shoulders of the giants that came before them. I think that, if you look at the way technology is going, AI is that natural progression to stand on the shoulder of the giants that have come before us. I really think that it's going to be a shortage of the right skills. And the reason why I say that is, if we think about manufacturing, typically manufacturing's 10 years behind, 20 years behind in technology. And so the people that are going to school today are going to be very data-driven, very data-forward, and the legacy equipment is not that. There's going to be that skills gap of older technology. Again, if we're building on what is today when we go to school, the stuff that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago isn't really covered other than maybe at a very high level. So they're not going to be able to come out of school, enter into the workforce, and basically hit the ground running. I see the big concern, and we talked about the 2.1 million unfulfilled manufacturing jobs in 2030. My fear is that we are so far behind the curve in standardization that we will not be able to fill the void by 2030. So we're talking just a few years down the road, and there's still major heavy lifting that has to be done on the plant floor. Whether it's at the line level, at the plant level, all the way up to the enterprise level, to standardize and document, and then really you're going to augment with AI in many cases. But you have to have it standardized and documented before you can even start to see the benefits. Digital transformation is all about generating and maintaining actionable information. And so in many cases where a senior operator would have a hunch, a gut instinct because he would listen to the sound of it, with AI, we can actually monitor the speeds and the vibration and that type of thing to be able to do that, so that the technology will help us make the decisions make the decisions based on data rather than gut instinct. So I think that change is normal, right? It's the evolution of mankind, if you will. And if you look at manufacturing specifically, 100 years ago, it took way more people to run a manufacturing process, because at every valve, there was a person to open and close that valve. At every motor, there was a person to start and stop the motor. So as manufacturing has gone from steam to having digital control systems, there was a loss of jobs. But what ended up happening is those people who were doing a very mundane job of turning a valve were now, and I know this sounds corny, but basically it gave them the opportunity to go out and find something else, something different. There will always be the need for the human. I just think that what we do with our day is going to evolve. I think that it needs to be equal effort given to both, because in order to continue to be successful, I need to have knowledgeable people. As I'm building my digital intelligence, I want these people to build into that digital intelligence and be a part of that, so that as they come together, it's a merge. And so I think that doing things like starting now with internships, and providing technology training to employees to help them be ready for those next steps, and then engaging in actually applying the new technology, starting to build forward to be ready for the technology, would be the best course of action.